Okay, so we've looked at using edit mode to access these individual elements to modify the geometry of our models. Just want to look at another common tool that people use mostly for creating organic type shapes. So what we're doing right now with cubes, it's good for tables and chairs and stuff like that, but not so good when you're creating, say, a tree or a character of some kind, an animal. So when you come to doing this sort of work, we use a thing called a modifier. So I'm just going to create a new scene, got my cube sitting there, it's already selected, and I'm going to pull this side menu out for a minute. So back in the first videos I mentioned that these properties buttons, they let us change certain things on our object. What we're going to do for this exercise is go across to the modifiers tab. It looks like a little, what's that, spanner. So click on that and see modifiers here, and there's all these different modifiers that we can add and explore in weeks to come. But the common one that I want to look at now is this one, Subdivision Surface. So I click on that. Instantly you can see it's changed my model quite significantly. It's no longer a cube. And the modifier itself, after adding the Subdivision Surface modifier, it's brought up this little menu here. And we've got subdivisions, the amount of times we are dividing our model, creating new geometry. I'm just going to turn these up to 3. The first one is how many times it's divided while you're modeling. The render option is how many times it divides when you actually go and render out your pictures. So I usually just set them both at 3. It tends to be a good starting place. So we've now got what looks like a sphere. One more thing before we move forward with it is, with our object selected, if you come over in this side menu, you'll see a shading option here. You may need to scroll to get it, I'm not sure. But shading there, we've got smooth and flat shading. So smooth shading, you can see the effect, it just smooths those edges so they're not so harsh. Whereas flat shading, we very much see every face and edge that sits in our geometry. So I'm going to go to smooth shading for this. Okay, so I'm still in object mode. When I jump into edit mode, you see that original cube that I created is still there. So this modifier doesn't actually change the geometry as I'm working with it in edit mode. It just changes the result by smoothing out between the edges of our model. So in a cube shape we get 2 edges like this, and what the computer then does is smooth between those 2 edges, creating a curved shape. It takes a little while to get your head around using Subdivision Surface modifiers for modeling, but they are very powerful and you do pick it up after a while. You just have to spend time mucking around with it till you get a feel for what it does, sort of a tactile feel. So anyway, I've got my cube. I'm going to just move underneath it, and then in face select mode I'm going to just select that bottom face of the cube. Then you'll see if I do my E for extrusion like we did on the table, I can pull out more geometry and it continues to smooth between whatever I create. So I'm just going to extrude down a little bit, about this far, and then scale this down. Okay, we're going to sort of work towards a really basic humanoid type shape, or a Martian type shape. So I've just extruded down, then scaled inwards. Now I'm going to extrude down again. Okay, sort of a neck type shape. extrude once more, so just keep pressing E to extrude each time. A little bit further down. This time I'm going to scale along the x-axis, so S and X. Start to pull out a shoulder, and then I'll extrude down just about so far, because in a minute this new face that I've just created, I'll bring an arm, I'll extrude an arm out from there, but I'll just go a bit further with the body first, so I'll extrude down. Okay, so now to create some basic arms, I'm just going to select my two shoulders there, extrude those, oops, sorry, one at a time. This one, I'm just going to go, you see if I pull it right out, we get this funny shape under the armpit, which is not very realistic. But if I extrude a short distance first and then extrude again a longer distance, we get it, because of that extra row of edges there, we get a sort of a smaller curve underneath. And then once more, and I'll just scale this one along the y-axis to give it a little bit of a sort of a glove shape. Now normally when you're modelling you actually mirror as you go, so you only actually create half of an object if you're doing a humanoid type figure, and it will mirror the other side, but we haven't covered that yet, so for this exercise we're just going to have to create the second arm by hand. So we'll go extrude, little distance, extrude again, extrude one more time, scale that along the y-axis. Okay, so we wanted to give him a bit of a bulge in his tummy. I can do my Control R for a loop cut, this one, and I'll put one around here, and then I'll go into edge select mode, select this front edge and grab that along the y-axis just to give him a bit of a rounded tummy. Okay, so as I say, this stuff, it does take a while to get your head around, but it definitely comes if you practice. Just keep with it, keep fiddling around, you'll start to get a feel for it. At this point I want to bring down two legs, but I've only got one face there, so once again, like we did with the table, if I want to bring two separate legs down I need two vertical cuts through this model. So I'm going to press Control R again. And the downside of this is that when I do this you'll see the shape of my head changes. So I'm going to do it anyway. Control R, position one over here, Control R again, position one over here. Okay, so that gives me, it's going to have quite wide legs, but it gives me two faces that I can bring my legs down. But you see the result, because I've added extra geometry up here, all of a sudden he's got sort of a more square shaped head. We can fiddle with the geometry here to get it rounder, but at this early stage, because we haven't learned all the tools, we're just going to leave it like that, and we'll just bring down two funny legs from here. So a little distance, a little bit further. Once again you can see, if I just Control Z there, if I extrude all the way down straight away, actually it probably looks better, we get a smoother curve in here. For the legs it actually looks quite good, but in the arms we extruded a short distance first, like this, and then again to get a sort of a sharper curve in our model. That's the sort of thing you get used to over time. Anyway, we'll bring a couple of legs down, a little bit of a foot, so we'll go extrude again, a little bit further down. I might scale this, I have to do them one by one, scale them along the y-axis, sorry, x-axis. And then we'll bring these forward. So if I extrude forward, if I go straight forward, we're going to get this sort of funny curve again, so we'll go a little distance first, and then again, maybe scale these up along the z-axis, give them a sort of a rounded foot. I'll just grab it, sure it sits flat on the floor. So it's very basic, but that's a sort of an initial 3D creature of some kind. Let's grab him up off the ground. Okay, so once again, quite a lot to take in there, but just take it slow, fiddle around, do a little bit at a time, start to get a feel for how these subdivision surfaces work.